This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Now, we talked about how there are people who are losing when the Browns bring in a bunch of players, but there are some winners. And there are a lot of winners, I think, on this roster in this year's draft, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But there's also some winners on the defensive side of the ball. Who are those guys? Why are they winners? I'll let you know. Offense. First winner, it's the obvious one. It's the one people have been talking about, Jed Wills. Now, does what the Browns did in the draft mean that the Browns don't have any plan to replace Jed Wills? No. But does it look a lot better now? Like, if you're Jed Wills, do you feel a lot better? Yes. Right? Because if the Browns, like I thought they would, took a tackle at 54, that would tell me that not only do they see you as somebody they wish to replace, they also do not think that you are playing remotely close to the level of play that they drafted you to play at, because they would think that they can replace you with the second round pick and you are a top 10 pick in the first round. The Browns do not think that there was anybody, and there were guys there that we did not think were going to be there at left tackle, like Kingsley Sumatia, all these guys are first round prospects, right? So this speaks to that the Browns are higher on Jed than maybe I am, and most certainly Browns fans are in general, right? Because I see how y'all talk about him. But this tells me that they're higher on him because they said, hey, Kingsley might be a guy we have a late first round grade on, or maybe even an early second round grade on, but that's not better than Jed. That's what they said in this draft. Does this mean Jed's going to get extended? No, because the Browns, we don't know what pick they're going to have. We don't know what kind of offensive line class we're going to be looking at next year when they do have a first round pick. Maybe that's what the Browns are thinking. Why draft somebody in the second round this year when we can get a first round pick next year, or use a first round pick next year to solve that problem and get a left tackle in with the 5th year option? That might legitimately be the thinking, right? Like it might not mean excellent job security for Jed Wills, but what it does mean is that this year he ain't got nobody breathing down his back, right? Like, he has nothing to worry about. That is the left tackle for right now. And who knows, maybe the Browns' plan is, oh, well, we can move DeJuan to left, which I have issues with people just saying that. Like, just saying that you could flip a tackle each side. I don't think it's that easy, but maybe the Browns have seen something at practice that make them think that DeJuan Jones can play the left side of the offensive line in the NFL. I understand he did it 12 times at Ohio State, but we talking about in the NFL. But nonetheless, Jed Wills right now, he's a winner out of this draft because the team is not as desperate to replace him as maybe some fans are. So that's good for him. Jordan Akins, we thought the Browns would come in, draft the tight end because they weren't happy with the tight ends behind David Njoku, but it looks like Jordan Akins is absolutely going to get another shot to prove that he's tight end 2 material. We had high hopes for Jordan Akins at this time last year, right? We thought he could get 500 yards with Deshaun Watson. We pointed to the chemistry. We pointed to how much Deshaun Watson loves throwing to tight ends. But we'll see what happens with him. He will definitely get the opportunity this year, and hopefully he can clean some things up. And maybe, having Ken Dorsey in there will really open things up for him this year. Another player that I see as a winner from this year's draft event is Cedric Tillman. Why is Cedric Tillman a winner? Because the Browns were clearly not that invested in drafting it. It's a similar thing to Jed Wills, right? Now, I don't know how thrilled they are with Cedric Tillman, but if the Browns were not happy with Cedric Tillman, They would have traded up for Keon Coleman. They would have traded up a couple of spots to get A.D. Mitchell. They did not feel so strongly about whatever they saw from Cedric Tillman last year that it couldn't be corrected, that they made a drastic move. And there were opportunities for them to make a drastic move. It would have been expensive in the case of Keon Coleman. Xavier Leggett actually went in the first round, so them big receivers went quick. But A.D. Mitchell, like even guys like that, that would kind of be a spot, a lane that Cedric Tillman occupies as somebody who's supposed to be next up on this team. That spot will go away if you draft the A.D. Mitchell, right? So, and that was only 3 spots ahead of them. So, yeah, I don't think the team is out on Cedric Tillman as much as people may suggest. And even when they drafted Jamari Thrash, that's not really somebody who's going to push out Cedric Tillman. That's somebody who's more or less coming for Elijah Moore's spot. But Elijah Moore's contract ends next year, so it's not like that spot was like up for grabs this year. He's going to play that spot and then move on, or maybe even sign, depending on what happens with that. But yeah, I don't think Cedric Tillman's spot's in jeopardy just yet. We'll see, because my thing with Cedric, he's a very talented player, but he's got to figure out how to be at the right place, right? Like if he has another camp where these quarterbacks are barking at him because he's not where he's supposed to be for whatever reason. And I don't think that reason's simple, right? I know people love to go to these simple solutions when players are struggling, and basically assuming that like he's not studying or something like that. I don't think it's something that simple. I don't think Cedric Tillman doesn't study, right? Like I need evidence of that before I just assume that of a player, because that's extreme. That's extreme. Right? Like, that's like if people accuse me of not watching the Browns while covering the Browns on channel. Like, it's fundamental to doing your job. Like, it should be assumed that you absolutely do that. So I don't think he's not studying or not familiar with the playbook. I think there's something more complicated going on why he is getting this level of miscommunication with like every quarterback he's playing with. And if that keeps happening, those quarterbacks aren't going to have patience for that. The Browns are a veteran team. They're trying to win now. They ain't trying to hear you trying to figure it out in the NFL. You trying to figure it out in the league. Like either you get right or good night, right? Get right or good night. That's what it is for Cedric Tillman. But as of right now, the Browns still think highly of him. DTR is somebody else who he was I wasn't sure what the Browns' plan was with him after what they did in the offseason when they brought in Tyler Huntley and they brought in Jameis Winston. Now, I'm still not 100% sure of what the Browns' plans are with them. Like, they didn't draft the quarterback, sure, and that means that he's absolutely going to have a chance to try to beat out Tyler Huntley for that third quarterback spot, or fend off Tyler Huntley for that third quarterback spot. But the reason DTR is on this list has nothing to do with anything the Browns did or DTR. The reason DTR is on this list and why I think his stock overall went up over the draft is because these teams went crazy at quarterback this year. Like, these teams went absolutely nuts at the quarterback position. They caught quarterback fever. And quarterback fever is a term that I just made up. And the definition of that term is, when there be like a good quarterback in a draft class, like Andrew Luck or Cam Newton or Trevor Lawrence, right? When there's a draft class with somebody at the head of it worth hyping up, like a Joe Burrow or something like that, right? There always is a smattering of mid quarterbacks that follows them, right? They get caught up in that wave and pushed up into that top conversation with them. They don't really belong, right? We go back. Andrew Luck. Yeah, he went number 1 overall. You know what? RG3 was in that wave too, and RG3 deserved to be in that wave. Ryan Tannehill? Like, you can say he had a good career, but I mean, not with the team that drafted him. But, Ryan went there. Brandon Whedon? That was the 2012 draft, too. He jumped to the 2011 draft, right? Cam Newton. Jake Locker. Blaine Gabbert. just all sorts of just, hey, how the hell did he get drafted up there? Because Cam got everybody excited, and then everybody was like, damn, I can't get Cam, but I want to get a quarterback now because everybody talk about Cam. So let me go draft Jake Locker. He kind of like Cam. He run, right? Hey, that's similar. That's similar. Trevor Lawrence, you get Zach Wilson, right? I can't get Trevor Lawrence, so let me go get Zach Wilson. He kind of like Trevor Lawrence, right? Kind of like they both throw the ball. You see what I mean? Whenever there is that top quarterback mania goes through these teams and they lose their mind. And Caleb Williams must be one hell of a quarterback because the amount of QB fever that these teams caught was nuts. They took Bo Nix and Michael Penix, not just in the first round, in the top 12. Woo! Woo! Look, some of y'all might be Bo Nix fans. I've heard y'all in the comment section. I'm not a Bo Nix fan. I've watched Bo Nix play plenty. I've seen him in person. I don't get it. I sang with Michael Penix. Like, I get why you could be excited on Michael Penix based on like some of the highlights that he has and based on some of what you saw at Washington. But when you evaluate him as a prospect for the NFL, there are obvious holes in both of their games that if people did not catch QB mania, QB fever, whatever I'm calling it at the time, they would have went in the second or third round. And the fact that those quarterbacks did go that high, and like literally any team that needed a quarterback drafted a quarterback super early, which means that they're now stuck with that quarterback. That means the market for DTR for the Browns to trade him is completely dried up. So DTR going to be here. He's going to be here, so he doesn't have to worry about moving. But that is the very roundabout way. I'm sorry I went on a bit of a tangent to get there of why DTR is on the winners list. Another guy that's on the winners list, Jerome Ford. Told y'all this running back class, they wasn't loving it. Browns ain't think about drafting a single running back in this draft class, and that's because Jerome Ford is better than literally every running back in this draft class. Well, not every, but any running back that they would have considered taking. And this is just kind of an endorsement of Jerome Ford as a number 2 back. I think he's better when he's utilized, not as a feature back, not as the first and second down back. He's a bit too volatile for that. But when he's allowed to come in there, hit some home runs, he's a good home run hitter. He's had a lot of big runs for this team. You know, he just gets overexposed when he's asked to carry the ball 30 times. Like, he's not Nick Chubb. He's not that type of running back, but he's still a damn good back. And I remember a day in Cleveland where we were excited about a dude having 800 rushing yards. I know Nick Chubb made us act like we ain't never been there before. Like, you know, he took us out that problematic area and we act like we never was there in the first place. But I see a lot of us call it Jerome Ford trash and like he ain't never done nothing. When if Jerome Ford would have played 4 years ago, you've been talking about building a team around Jerome Ford because he had 800 rushing yards. And you know why I know this? Because I saw y'all try to do this with Terrence West, and I saw y'all try to do this with Isaiah Crowell. And when I say y'all, I mean a very young pre-YouTube video Quincy was out here trying to get excited about Terrence West over like 600 rushing yards. We was out here comparing Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell to Ernest Mack, to Mack and Bynert. We was doing that. It wasn't just us. This was on the pregame shows, on the UPN pregame shows. This is what we was doing. Now we out here turning our nose up at 800 rushing yards and like 300 receiving yards and 1,100 all-purpose yards. Like, we would have been hyping that shit up before we drafted Nicholas Jamal Charles. Like, we acted too rich right now, man. Like, it wasn't just 5 years ago that we would have been thrilled with Jerome Ford. So we need to stop this, man. Like, yeah, Jerome Ford ain't Nick Chubb, but ain't nobody Nick Chubb, dog. It's Nick Chubb. He's 1-on-1. Jerome Ford's fine to support Nick Chubb. I don't know why people talk about like he dirt. It's nuts. It's nuts. Let's talk about the defensive winners. Greg Newsome is a winner because he didn't get traded. And I don't know why people thought he was going to get traded for a second round pick. I never bought into this. Why would the Browns trade a good player for a draft asset who might turn in to a good player? Like, it didn't make sense to me. Like, if you were going to trade Greg Newsome, you would use that surplus to try to get somebody you have no doubt will be a good player, and that's a veteran player. So yeah, I just didn't buy the smoke around Greg Newsome at all. I never thought the Browns were going to seriously consider trading him. But he's a winner because he gets to stay on this defense, and I think he's going to shine this year. And I know people give him hell because of that last playoff game he had versus Houston, but boiling his whole body of work down this year to that playoff game is just silly. Like, he put together a good body of work this year, both as a slot corner and as a boundary corner. And yeah, I think people are just being a little bit too negative on Greg Newsome for a game that wasn't 100% his fault, because Ronnie Hickman was getting ate up in that game too, which is fine because he was an undrafted rookie starting at safety, and that's more the problem, right? Like, it's not Ronnie Hickman. It's there were that many injuries to the team at that time that something was bound to fall apart. And it did. The next winner is a triple. So Tony Fields, Devin Bush, Mahmoud Diabate. They're all winners. Why? Because the guy that the Browns drafted, he's not really going to be in that competition for them unless he flashes something crazy. But there's a spot to take over on this Browns defense. It's Sione Takitaki's old spot. Somebody's got to take it over. Tony Fields has experience in this defense, playing that position, playing that role when Sione Takitaki had to slide over to Mike. So he has something in that competition. Devin Bush has the tools to be a great player in that role. He's never lived up to those tools or utilized those tools, but he does have the tools. And Mahmoud Diabate is somebody who's very interesting to me because I think he's athletically more intriguing than Tony Fields. If you're those three, you feel good about it because they did not draft somebody like an Edrin Cooper or a Junior Colson who were not just going to enter that conversation, but dominate that conversation if they were in it, because those guys would have absolutely took that spot. So they're in a good spot because they get a chance to start on this. Well, not start, but get a meaty role on this team. And then Zadarius Smith is a winner because I think the additions that they made to the defensive line with Michael Hall is going to do something to make sure that he does not have to play interior anymore. Like, he's not going to have to flex inside. I think he's going to be able to sit outside and just rush and take advantage of how teams try to play off of him and play off of Miles. And I think also the less he has to slide inside, the less collisions he has to take, and the less chance that he has an injury, because it's just, he's not small. I don't want to make it seem like he's small, but the more you just play inside when you're undersized for a defensive 3-tech, the more chance of injury you risk going up with. And I think he'll be able to sit outside, maybe even get on the outside shoulder of a Myles Garrett and get a one-on-one with the tight end. Like, he's going to have all of those things available to him this year. And I think that's why he is a winner in this year's draft. But those are the draft winners. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.